Texas was denied emergency services from FEMA for 72 hours while Texans dealt with flash floods throughout Texas. That's right, because Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security, who oversees FEMA, regulated and budget cutted the way that FEMA is allowed to respond. Any response that costs more than $100,000, they need pre-approval. And for 72 hours, while Kristi Noem was doing a poll about which picture should be on her profile, the people of Texas was facing one of natural disasters that's hit that state in a long time. And while she was worrying about what picture to use, human lives were lost. That's not a question, it's a fact. The fact is, FEMA was supposed to respond immediately. That's the way it's always operated. However, new budget cuts and new restrictions that Kristi Noem herself actually implemented required her approval for any response to any natural disaster prior to action. And that left 72 hours unattended without FEMA being able to do anything. FEMA was left powerless during a Texas flood that took over 100 lives and has people missing still. And isn't Texas a red state? Didn't Texas actually help this administration get voted in? Yet this is how they're treating the people that showed this administration the most loyalty? You guys want to talk about the fact that immigrants are the issue? Please like, share, follow, and leave a comment. Justice for us all so that we can show unity and we can all band together against this.
Flood hit in the very early hours of the morning. So people were sleeping in the middle of the night when this flood came. That was an act of God. It's not the administration's fault that the flood hit when it did.
Look at her. She's laughing. Like losing a child is funny. It took 72 hours for no one to approve rescue funds just because it was over 100,000. But they had no problem funding other projects. Does that sound right to you?
We as a federal government don't manage these disasters. The state does. We come in and support them. And that's exactly what we did here in this situation. FEMA went to an enhanced level immediately, but as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned through state block grants to help them with cleanup. And we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision of how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. 7 days after that tragic flooding in Texas, at least 121 people have been confirmed dead, while 166 are still missing. Almost a week out from the initial flooding, search and rescue operations have now shifted to a recovery phase as hope of finding survivors dwindles. And with that horrible reality front of mind, we're starting to learn the ways in which the Trump administration failed in its response to that deadly flooding. According to an eye-opening new report, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, the person ultimately in charge of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, delayed the federal response to that deadly flooding for more than 3 days, even as local search and rescue teams raced to find survivors. As you probably have noticed, Kristi Noem has been the center of a number of stories we've reported on, like the nearly 300 people the administration renditioned to a notorious prison in El Salvador, or the National Guard and Marines dispatched to the streets of L.A. and their show of force there.
When the floods surged through Kerrville, FEMA was unable to send help because Kristi Noem required her personal approval for any contract exceeding $100,000. That includes search and rescue crews. And here's the thing. This isn't some accident. It's policy. The felon wants FEMA phased out. Noem's rule didn't just delay help. It crippled it. In any disaster, minutes matter. But under this administration, disaster relief is held hostage by one person's pen, just like our money. They turned FEMA into a glorified call center where staff are stuck answering phones instead of saving lives. And now they're patting themselves on the back for fiscal discipline while Texans are pulling bodies from rivers of little kids. No state can do this alone. That's why we had FEMA in the first place. I'd wait for the hurricanes. I bet you can buy a snorkel and a miracle on Prime Days if you hurry up.
We have big news right now. Because of bureaucratic delays, the Department of Homeland Security did not approve additional urban search and rescue teams for Central Texas for FEMA for a period of 72 hours. This is a bombshell story right now from CNN. Here's what we know right now. So previously, the Department of Homeland Security under Kristi Noem issued an order that any expenditures over $100,000 have to be approved in writing by the Secretary of Homeland Security. Well, when it comes to the devastating flooding, they desperately needed urban search and rescue teams. And it took 72 hours because they couldn't automatically send them out because they cost more than $100,000. It took 72 hours for Kristi Noem to approve these urban search and rescue teams to go out to Central Texas to help with search and recovery efforts, potentially hampering FEMA efforts on the ground. This isn't a political story, it's just the truth, whether or not some people want to hear it. So spread the word so more people know. I'll do a full breakdown of this and more on my Substack. Link in bio. Follow along for more news to come.
Wait, Kristi Noem denied FEMA help to Texas for 3 whole days? That's what's being reported right now.
Officials inside FEMA that federal response may not have been as fast as it might have been. They say that a new rule that any expenditure over $100,000 needed sign-off from Secretary Noem slowed the federal response. These sources tell us that FEMA's deployment of urban search and rescue teams, which are typically deployed in anticipation they might be needed, instead was delayed until Monday, 3 days after the flood.
So 59 adults and 36 children perished over the weekend. How many of them were still alive while Kristi Noem celebrated her 4th of July weekend, wasn't working, didn't sign the form, and so search and rescue teams were not authorized to go in and find survivors during the hours that are most critical after a catastrophic event? Now, we know that both Trump and Kristi Noem have said disparaging things about FEMA. They don't want it to exist in its current form. And together they have made devastating policy changes, but this is an instance where you can see maybe something that looks good on paper doesn't really translate into real life, real world experience that will save lives instead of perhaps cost lives, which is what it looks like in this situation.
Here's Joe from Georgia. So people are wanting answers to questions. And the questions are about why was the response from FEMA delayed with the Texas flooding? By the way, there were other rescuers in the area when it happened, but it wasn't from FEMA and it wasn't from the state of Texas. However, what has came out with this is, do you want to know why that the Department of Homeland Security Secretary didn't act faster? Well, it's because she put a rule in at one time that no expenses over $100,000 could be spent without her signature. And this is because, folks, by the way, they're broke, the Department of Homeland Security. They're having to spend money out of other budgets to take care of them. But it took her an extra 2 days after the flood. Now, there's 4 officials at the Federal Emergency Management said that they had to wait on the signatures. They had to wait to make sure that they could spend the money to do it. So the paperwork was signed 72 hours after the flood began. Trump has called, of course, to abolish FEMA.
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later. But right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that.
In light of the floods, do you think that the federal government needs to hire back any of the meteorologists who were fired in the last few months?
I wouldn't know that. I really would. I would think not. This was the thing that happened in seconds. Nobody expected it. Nobody saw it. Very talented people are there, and they didn't see it. It's, I guess they said, once in 100 years. They've never seen anything like this. So I wouldn't, people are trying to blame the school. They're trying to blame the camp. They're trying to blame. It's just a horrible thing. But no, I wouldn't say that, no.
Are you planning to visit Texas, Mr. President?
Probably on Friday.
Of course, to abolish FEMA. I don't think the problems with FEMA, especially in this incident, I think it's probably with the inexperienced, someone who doesn't have any business being in the job, running an organization that you know nothing about. It's not just a management position. So Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, she missed it.
It's all gone. Everything is gone. The pool, the brewery, the bar. Hamad's house is effed. This one is no better. Everyone's alive. That's what matters. Everyone's alive.
Take a look at this. So she's asked by one of these guys, CNN has basically got a report accusing you of slowing the process. Would you like to respond to that? And then she says, well, there you go. Fake news. CNN again. It's absolutely trash what they are doing by saying that. This is essentially what everybody in the Trump administration does when the truth gets out. They just automatically call the news fake and then attack the media company reporting about the truth. But here's what the facts actually say. According to multiple FEMA officials as well as CNN, a new rule released by Nome's Department of Homeland Security subjects any FEMA funding above $100,000 to be signed off by Nome personally. That rule delayed FEMA search and rescue deployment for 3 days as well as aerial imaging to help locate missing persons. So when Kristi Noem or anybody else in the Trump administration refers to something as fake news, what they're actually trying to say is, oh no, they caught me and I don't know what to do. CNN simply reported the truth based on what multiple FEMA officials told them, and Kristi Noem has no defense, so she's attacking the messenger. Let's not pretend screaming fake news makes the facts go away.
Emergency response efforts in Texas adapt to ongoing federal budget procedures and planning timelines.
I have stayed quiet long enough. I have thought long and hard about posting this video, so stick around. Who showed up first in Texas? Who showed up for the people who live in Texas during those floods? You don't know? Mexico. What are we doing to their people here? What did they risk coming here with supplies, with dogs, with all kinds of stuff to come and save a state that voted against them? A country that's against them. What did they risk? Think about it. If you're not awake now, if your eyes aren't wide open, I don't know what's wrong with you. I really don't. This administration is tearing their families apart. They're not taking criminals off the street. They're taking hardworking people off the street. Hardworking people out of jobs that provide fruit and veggies and all kinds of stuff and buildings, and they are the backbone of this country, and we treat them like freaking animals. And I am fed up to here with it. And I don't care who unfollows me, who follows me, I don't care anymore. Humans are what they are. They're human beings, and hardworking, loving human beings. Wake up. Wake up. I can't any longer. I am so freaking angry at the way we treat these people. So freaking angry. And I don't know what to do. I can't stop it. And I just wake up. Wake up. Know who came to save you, because it wasn't him, okay? And I'm going to say that nicely because I have a lot of choice words that I could call him on here. But it wasn't him. Not until days later. It was Mexico that showed up first. You remember that.
I've been going back and forth all week with Trump supporters about the reaction to the floods in Texas. Now, I'm not going to sit there and pretend like these budget cuts had anything to do with the actual natural disaster itself. Anyone with an ounce of common sense knows that. But they continue to argue with me despite the fact that I've showed them factual information about how the Trump administration is partially to blame with how it was reacted to. And that's directly tied to budget cuts from Doge. That can't be disputed. It's black and white on fucking paper. But now I just found out a new detail that makes it even worse. It really got me fired up. Apparently, there's a new rule that in order for FEMA to move forward with operations or whatever it is, I'm not exactly sure about the verbiage, but anything over $100,000 from FEMA has to have a signature from Kristi Noem. They were ready on Friday to move in, which would have saved a lot of people. That signature didn't come through until Monday. Fuck politics. Kids are fucking dead because of Kristi Noem and this bitch ass fucking administration. Fuck Trump. Fuck Kristi Noem. Fuck the entire administration. And fuck FEMA. Because, quite frankly, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission when it comes to saving lives. So yeah, fuck FEMA too. Y'all can get fucking bent. MAGA, MEGA, whatever the fuck y'all want to call yourselves. Y'all can get fucking bent too. Kids. Let's just focus on the kids. They lost their lives because of this administration. Would people have lost their lives anyway? Had the proper measures be taken? Possibly. There's absolutely no way to know for sure exactly what would have happened had the right steps been taken, the preventative steps. But the fact of the matter is, FEMA was ready on Friday and didn't move until Monday because they didn't have a signature. A man lost his life saving his family. Another man had to toss his baby to a stranger so that his child could live while he washed away. This isn't about politics. This is about human decency. A trait that apparently nobody fucking has anymore. I'm fucking sick of this shit. These were kids who didn't have to die. And even the people on the left talking about FIFO.
A new rule that any expenditure over $100,000 needed sign-off from Secretary Noem slowed the federal response. These sources tell us that FEMA's deployment of urban search and rescue teams, which are typically deployed in anticipation they might be needed, instead was delayed until Monday, 3 days after the flood. Now, a source also tells us that a request Texas made for FEMA aerial imagery to aid in the search was also delayed, waiting for Secretary Noem's approval. Now, additionally, multiple FEMA officials say that they were taken aback by the agency's relatively limited response in the immediate aftermath of the disaster.
80 people have just died in the Texas flood, including kids at a summer camp. And although this storm was deadly, it probably could have been prevented. Trump slashed fundings to weather and climate agencies such as the NOAA, which left emergency systems either broken or out of date, and warnings came either too late or not at all. Experts did beg for flood protection in Texas, but were ignored, and now families are grieving. This flood did not start with the rain, it started with Trump's neglect.
You probably heard Trump says he's returning power to the states. But when it comes to disaster like Texas floods, that's not what's happening. Let me break it down real quick. So FEMA used to act fast. In a major flood, they'd pre-stage rescue teams before things got deadly. But under Trump's new plan, FEMA can't do that anymore. They now need political approval from Trump's appointees before deploying help. And in the case of Texas, that approval had to come from Kristi Noem, a federal official, not a Texas leader. She waited 72 hours. That's 3 days of people trapped, flooded, waiting for rescue. So, no, Trump didn't return power to the states. He just cut FEMA's legs out from under it and replaced it with bureaucratic chokeholds ran by loyalists. It's not local control. It's centralized delay wrapped in states' rights rhetoric. And the cost? Lives.
Why did it take 3 days for FEMA to get the green light in Texas? Why did it take 72 hours before FEMA could help the people of Texas? 72 hours. While folks were losing their homes, their lives, and clinging to rooftops. You tell me what Kristi Noem was doing for 3 whole days that she was too busy to sign off disaster relief for Texas. What was it, Kristi girl? Were you too busy cosplaying an ICE agent? Was your little photo op tour more important than the disaster that was happening in Texas? Let's be clear, this ain't about Kristi Noem. This is about the whole damn Trump administration. The same one, remember, that swore they'd do better. Is this what you call better? Making people wait in waist-deep floodwaters for help, and all they're waiting on is somebody to sign some papers. This is what Republicans mean when they say small government, small enough to ignore you when you need it most. Don't forget, don't forgive, because while the Trump administration was stalling, people in Texas were suffering. Never forget.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.